Welcome to the conversation at airsafe.com. I'm your host, Todd Curtis. On September 1st, 2020, I had a conversation with Jeff MacArthur of Radio 640 AM in Toronto, where we discussed an August 30th event in Los Angeles, when two airline crews reported someone in a jetpack flying very close to their landing routes.
Okay, we were talking about this last hour. This happened out in L.A. back on Sunday at LAX. Not one, but two pilots saw some guy buzz by their airplane in a jetpack. Yes, a jetpack. Have a listen. Here is the pilot radioing this into the control tower.
Tower, American 1997. We just passed a guy in a jetpack.
American 1997, okay, thank you. Were they up to your left side or right side?
Off the left side, maybe 300 yards or so, about our altitude.
Okay, American 1997.
All right, apparently the future is now. Jetpacks are a thing and spotted at LAX on Sunday. Let's welcome in Todd Curtis, aviation safety expert. He joins us now for more on this on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. Hey there, Todd.
Well, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. These exist. This is for real, is it? Do we know that jetpacks, they're actually up, running, and working?
There have been several entities around the world, primarily over in the Middle East and Europe, where jetpack inventors have done this, flown them in concert with other aircraft, flown them across the English Channel. So the technology certainly exists.
Can you, in layman's terms, explain the technology? How exactly? This is just strapping a backpack, something on your back, and it's liftoff time? How does it work?
Well, just like any other airplane aircraft that is, you have wings that generate lift, and if you can generate enough lift, you can overcome the force of gravity and fly. And the jetpacks that have been demonstrated overseas, for the most part, look like it has a wing structure with a couple of small jet engines on it, and the person is sort of Rocketeer style attached underneath the wings, and they fly it like they would a regular aircraft. If you have enough thrust, have enough fuel, you can stay up for as long as you can.
How do these things run? How are they powered? Do they run on regular?
I'm not sure what kind of fuel they use, but the ones that I've seen successfully demonstrated, essentially have very, very small jet engines. We're talking a few inches across, not the size of what you would see on a commercial jet or even an executive jet.
Okay, and these things are developed. I mean, there's not a major manufacturer making these right now. For the most part, these are people in their backyard, in their shed, piecing these things together?
I'm not aware of any major corporation that's doing this sort of thing because, let's just say the market is somewhat limited. But there are some smaller scale outfits, some of them financed by corporate entities, who are doing this primarily for promotional reasons. That is, you fly the jetpack in formation with your airliner, and I saw this with an A380 over in the Middle East, and it makes for a good advertising. But as far as practical uses, let's just say that jetpacks have limited range and limited cargo capacity beyond the person who's flying it, and they're there primarily for demonstration purposes, not for any practical purpose.
Okay, so there's no doubt that the pilots that radioed this back to the tower at LAX, their eyes weren't fooling them. They more than likely saw somebody with a jetpack. That's entirely a possibility.
Either they saw someone flying a jetpack at about 3,000 feet, or there was someone flying an aircraft that was made up to look like a person in a jetpack. It could have been a drone dressed up like a person in a jetpack. That technology, that is someone dressing up some sort of drone device to look like someone in a jetpack, I've never heard of that. So at this point, given the limited information, I'll believe the pilots. Not one set of pilots, but two sets of pilots. And this wasn't out in the country. This was south of Los Angeles, the downtown Los Angeles, about 3 or 4 miles south of downtown LA is when the American Airlines jet saw it. There was another airliner, I believe America West, a second airliner, I can't remember the airline, that did see it, but they didn't state exactly where. When the American Airlines aircraft saw it, they said, hey, it's about 300 yards to the left of us. And they were at a point that was essentially directly south of downtown, and about 2 or 3 miles to the east of the LA Coliseum, the Memorial Coliseum, where they had the Olympics in 32 and 84.
Yeah, first of all, if I was one of those pilots, I'd be having a second look at the coffee in my hand and wondering what's in it. Am I really seeing what what I think I'm seeing? But over and above that, do we know, were the pilots, were they on the ground awaiting takeoff? Did they have altitude? Do we know, Todd?
Both aircraft were in a landing pattern for LAX. One was doing a straight-in approach from the east, coming from Philadelphia, and the other aircraft was doing a sort of a looping right-hand turn. It had entered the LA area from the north, and it just passed over to the west of downtown LA, was turning in toward Los Angeles. And by the way, when those two aircraft landed, the American Airlines aircraft landed on the runway to the left, and the other aircraft landed to the runway on the right, which is about roughly a mile separate from one another. So, which, in my opinion, both of those pilots were well within visual range of something that size to see something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering, just how close they would have been. Having said that, do we know where the person with the jetpack is, where they landed? Have they been apprehended or at least questioned by officials?
As I understand it, there is an active investigation underway with the Los Angeles Police Department, and because of the fact that this was something that may have affected air traffic control and, frankly, air safety, I don't have any paperwork on this, but I do believe that some level of federal investigation, be it FBI or FAA, would certainly be appropriate. I don't know if there's an investigation ongoing, though.
Yeah, and finally, you say that there's a limited market for this. I'm sure there's lots of people in their cars stuck on the Gardner 401, 427, listening to the two of us right now thinking, sign me up. I mean, if this is technology that works, get me out of traffic right now. Is this possibly, I don't know, the future of travel, or at least a future option when it comes to travel?
Well, again, because of the very specialized nature of this flying device, it has a fairly limited use. For example, and not to be too technical, but you really can't fly something like that in heavy weather. You can't fly something like this through clouds because the only sensors that you have are the pilot's eyes and ears. So the person flying it is actually the instrumentation system for this aircraft. So unless you have someone who's really well trained or extremely motivated, it'll be difficult to get this done by more than a handful of people. Now, this is Los Angeles. Not the first time something like this happened. Some years back, there was a gentleman who literally put a bunch of balloons, attached it to a lawn chair, and flew it in the Los Angeles area. And several aircraft did take notice of this person. He was able to safely land. I believe there was a TV movie made about this guy. But lone inventors or small groups of inventors wanted to do something sort of dangerous and kind of kooky. Not the first time it's happened, probably won't be the last.
Yeah, this jetpack idea, it seems all well and good until you want to get home and it's January 17th. Maybe all of a sudden now the car seems like a much better option. Here with Todd Curtis, aviation safety expert. Well, we got you on the line, Todd, and we got a couple of minutes here. Let me ask you about WestJet. Last week they come out with a new rule, no mask, no fly. What do you think of that?
Well, this is something that's a sensible rule in the sense of, obviously there's a pandemic with coronavirus about. There are no workable vaccines at this point, and prevention is the best option. Now, as far as what's the likelihood that someone can actually get COVID-19 if they're on an aircraft, or more generally, going to and from an airport, including the flight on the airplane, I haven't seen any scientific information on that, but it seems that this airline, as well as many others around the world, are playing it safe. And it's a private entity. They are perfectly within their right to restrict travel to whomever they please, including restricting people who don't wear masks.
What is the biggest concern when it comes to COVID and air travel? Is it, I think it's two things, really. First of all, physical distancing, of course, whether or not they're going to leave, I don't know, that middle seat empty, because obviously that's money, that's revenue. And secondly, it's the air systems, right? The recycled air.
Well, certainly there's systems in place in most aircraft that actually put the the cabin air, through filters on a regular basis. So the chance of the virus spreading from the front to the back of the plane, in most cases, is extremely low. But here's the problem with risk. There's a definite risk, but the level of risk and how that risk manifests itself isn't well known. So the steps that are being taken by WestJet and others are sensible. They may be overkill or they may be inadequate. We just don't know right now.
Yeah, and having said that, just finally, Todd, when can the aviation industry and, people that love to travel, when can they expect this to return to normal? Is it when there is and if there is a vaccine?
I think, in my opinion, because the three things you can do at risk, you can prevent it entirely, you can make it less likely to happen, and you can make the effects less serious. Well, the last two are being done right now because people can be treated if they had COVID, and there are things you can do like wear masks to reduce the likelihood of it. But the first step, preventing it entirely, that says we have to have a vaccine. Without that, you'll be behind the power curve the whole time trying to keep this disease in check.
Without a doubt. Aviation safety expert Todd Curtis with us this afternoon. Todd, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. For more on airline safety and security, please visit airsafe.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.